Why is Tesla stock down today? It's down 7% or has losses of over $42 billion. If we look here to the heat map, Apple, Google, and Tesla keep getting shots fired at them. If we look at year to date, it's not much better. Apple, Google, and Tesla are all red again. We're definitely seeing some winners and losers, but today we want to focus on Tesla for at least a few minutes. Tesla China shipments plunged to lowest in more than a year. Oof, right? That's pretty harsh. Why? Well, the stock's down by nearly 25%, but at least Elon Musk got his favorite number. It's 42. The company lost $42 billion in value today. Pretty incredible. So I think part of the story is that Chinese car maker overtakes Tesla as world's most popular EV maker. This is back in December. So, okay, looks like BYD wants to come take Tesla's lunch. Yes, but it's not just Tesla in BYD's site. It's the whole car industry. And we're starting to see that now. We're starting to see that there is increased pressure, which is definitely hurting Tesla stock. And another thing that's really interesting is that we're going to look at this article here from Ray Dalio, but this morning we talked about when Tesla was included in the S&P 500. I'm actually going to bring that up right now, and then we'll come back and see what Ray Dalio had to say. Tesla was included in the S&P 500 on December 21st of 2020. Okay, well, where is that? Let's look back in time here. Let's look at our daily chart. If we go back to here, we're looking at December 21st. We're looking at right here, which means roughly $210. Where's Tesla today? It's lower than $210, which means that we got some forced buying or a blow off top. We eventually formed a head and shoulders. The stock went up, came back down, dropped by 75% from peak to trough. That's a 75% decline. Then we got a monster dead cat bounce, which really led to a bigger head and shoulders. So right now the stock is under pressure, and it is lower than where it was when it got included in the S&P 500. This will be notable because we're going to come back and talk about SMCI a little bit later, the newest darling of Wall Street, which just got included in the S&P 500, just like Tesla, after a meteoric rise. All right, we'll come back and look at that one in a moment. So Tesla got added to the S&P, and it's become less expensive, but it's still not cheap. So hedge fund manager, hedge fund rockstar, says 2 Magnificent 7 stocks are cheap. And hint, hint, one is green so far this year, and one is red. All right, let's have a look. What does he say? Google and Meta are somewhat cheap. Okay. We're going to skip forward. When I look at U.S. stocks, it does not look like we have rallied enough. Doesn't look very bubbly to me. Okay, cool. Well, which one's overexpensive? Where is it here? The only Magnificent 7 stock is stock Dalio was cautious on is Tesla. He called it somewhat expensive. Yes, Tesla has grown into its valuation. But remember, the stock market is a future discount mechanism. So right now, the future for Tesla, it's not that it's going to go to zero. It's just that it's not as bullish as the stories we heard when it was included in the S&P. The story we heard was that Tesla was going to take over the world. And it's not that it's doing bad. It's just not really doing what was promised when it was included. All right, I'm going to ask you for a huge favor. If you could please consider smashing the thumbs up and subscribing to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. All right, so if we understand what's happening to Tesla, what does he say about the rest of the market? Well, let's have a look. So he doesn't say the market is overpriced, blah, blah, blah. Let's just skip down to here. So we just have a little bit here. Not seeing any S&P 500 bubble. Dalio assesses the U.S. stock market using a matrix of 6 measures for signs of a bubble. None are extreme highs. Okay, so we're going to go through and talk about this article a little bit more this week, but I just want to give you the cliff notes for today. We also saw that Bank of America is upgrading the S&P 500 to 5,400. Oh my goodness. The bulls are thrashing. Yes. And we talked about a few things on the weekend. What I really want to show you is an update to RSP because we're seeing another ETF join new all-time highs. Gold, or GLD, is now above the 2011 high. It's above the 2020 high. It's above the 2022 high. It made a new all-time high. Gold is starting to break out. What's also really interesting is that Bitcoin is making a run for all-time highs right now. It is up by 10% on the month, and it's within about $2,000 or about under 2% of getting it to 69,000 to the cent to test the all-time high, which means risk assets are not waiting. They are pumping. They are going higher. It's a bull market. All right. So gold is up, Ether's up, and this one's also up. And when we look at just the S&P and the NASDAQ, we see that they're both red today. So you're like, oh my God, market's weak. Well, yes, if you're only looking at these two, it might appear like the market's softening, even if we're going higher on multiple uptrends. Again, if we're pointing up, where are we likely going to go? We're probably going to keep going up. That's Newton's first law of motion. So we talked about this on the weekend. Here it is right here. An object in motion will continue with constant speed and direction unless acted on by an unbalanced force. That would be us losing the uptrend. Otherwise, we're looking for continued strength of higher lows and higher highs. And until we see that happen, there's only really three losers in the mega caps, meaning the biggest stocks in the S&P. It's Apple, Google, and Tesla. And it's starting to look a little bit bleak. We'll come back to Tesla and SMCI in a moment. But first, what I want to show you is the next stock trying to join the blue sky group. It's RSP. We talked about this one on the weekend. It's within a whisker of getting there. Previous all-time high is 164.9. We made it to 164.7, or within 20 cents of making a test to the all-time high. So what does that mean? It means the average equal weight S&P 500 stock is almost at a record level of bullishness. What does that mean? Hey, it's a party. We got all these things going into new all-time highs. The NASDAQ, gold, chips, tech, the Dow, Germany, insurance, Berkshire Hathaway, water, XLV. We got CAF, which is the Russell, the good ones. New York Stock Exchange making a new high. That's 2,000 stocks. EXI, we got all these other stocks. Apple is now falling back below. This is one stock giving us a warning here because it is now actually lost its previous top. Tesla and Apple were the darlings of 2022 and 2023. Well, both of them suck so far this year. They're down 6.5, 3.7, and Tesla's down by 25. Apple is no longer the biggest stock in the world. Microsoft took that crown. So Microsoft is the only company currently worth more than $3 trillion. Apple fell to 2.7, right? It's not a small company, but it's not as big as it was before. And on the daily chart, it's starting to look pretty ugly, right? Big dead cat bounce, tight cat bounce. We keep going lower, and at this pace, we're going to form a death cross soon. A death cross is not good, has the word death in it, which means the chart's not looking healthy, wants to go down. And we talked about that. Jerome Powell is going to be talking this week. So I think that when he starts his testimony on Wednesday and then again on Thursday, that will be particularly important. So since we don't have a lot of key dates for tomorrow, we come back on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for those dates. What I really want to focus on is going to be SMCI. And the reason why is because we just talked about Tesla. We talked about what it means. We are closing higher than we open. That's a really good sign. I really want to see what happens here at 1,077.87 cents, just below where we closed today, to see whether or not we can recapture that. If not, I'm looking for a potential gap fill. And remember, we talked about how Tesla went a lot higher in the short term after its S&P inclusion. So if AI is real, and now we're seeing a shift, again, including from Apple saying we're going to pause the EV and we're going to be shifting to our VR set and to AI. Well, this stock is right at the middle of it. In addition to NVIDIA, which is going even higher, another 3.6 today for NVIDIA or NVDA. So that's it. If you want to know more, I encourage you to watch the weekend deep dive now queued up on the left-hand side. If not, I'll see you for the stream at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Thank you very much for tuning in.